here's Tucker, and this is the segment I wanted to show you and get your reaction. I think you say you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen none Tucker segments on the balloon yet.
Without borders, you can't have a country if you don't have borders. But that's also
here we go,
which is itself a kind of border. So maintaining control of the skies over the United States, deciding who comes in and out and on what terms, is one of the most basic duties of the Pentagon and has been since aviation began. If you were to fly your Cessna into restricted airspace in parts of this country, the U.S. military would scramble jets and they might shoot you down. So it's not a small infraction. Unless, of course, you happen to be the Chinese government and you're operating an enormous white dirigible designed to spy on American nuclear installations. In that case, you could relax. You've got friends at the White House. Absolutely nothing is going to happen to you. Now, that's not an imaginary scenario. We're not guessing. We know it's true.
So he's obviously, this is what you were referring to earlier. He's obviously trying to downplay or act like Joe Biden is not doing anything or is very soft on China because he's saying, by him saying, oh, you have a friend in the White House. Let's continue. Oh, I got to press the button.
It's true because we're seeing it right now. As you've doubtless heard, an enormous spy balloon the size of several school buses has floated over from central China. It's currently, we think, drifting across the continental United States. Yesterday, it passed over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. That's one of only 3 places in this country that houses Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles. By this afternoon, the Chinese spy balloon had made it to Kansas City. And there, over the skies of the pilot flying a private plane at 47,000 feet.
The Chinese was here spying on the Chiefs game.
All right.
The Chinese spy balloon. Derelict balloon adrift, he said, in a notice to other nearby pilots. But it was not a derelict balloon. It was a balloon being controlled by China. In other words, here we have a foreign military aircraft over...
Foreign military aircraft.
And the people like Tucker and the right-wing people saying the Chinese people are sending a balloon because they want to launch a secret EMP that would target our electronics. I'm like, dude, this country is full of schizophrenics or something, man. Like, these people are crazy. They are crazy. But continue.
But yeah, but to just since we have a pause here, I can make this point here. But this is all the beginning. The reason I say this, I think this is the beginning of the propaganda campaign for war, is you have to build the public up, build up their hatred, so they don't push back on you spending billions and billions of dollars on a war. So Russia has been more over the years for decades have already been vilified. So that's a lot easier sell for Ukraine, but for China, there has to be a buildup in these. So you're gonna start having these stories where it'll be like, "What? Why are you guys doing this, China?" Like these stories where America's gonna be like, "What? Why are they doing this?" Because they're trying to put in their head, "Yeah, they're trying to do something to us." Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, why you guys think? And this is why I've been calling out Tucker for this for months now. Why you guys think that he's been doing these unhinged anti-Chinese propaganda segments? Because he explained earlier that even though he said he don't want a hot war, he said he still want an economic war with China. Why do we want an economic war with China? That's such a capitalist mindset. Why do we want to compete against them instead of cooperate to uplift both of our global working, the global working class and the working class of both countries? So in order to sell the idea that China is our enemy and we must compete against them, you have to do constant anti-Chinese propaganda. And the real reason why capitalists must do this, and this is why capitalism must be defeated, is because instead of cooperation, they have to dominate. There can't be any competition. There can't be any example of an alternative system working. We have a market socialist system where the banks are ran by the government. That's how people got housing in China for a very low cost. Like they have a completely different economic model than we do. So the capitalist mindset is we can't show people any working alternative because we can't even get people to question or even think about any other mode of production. So I'm asking you guys, how did this like competition, how does ideology that capitalists have, how does that help you in your life? Like how did this dick measuring contest that capitalists want to prove their ideology is the strongest of them all, how does that improve the quality of your life? It does not. But go ahead, CJ.
Well, that's such a great point. Let's listen to some more Tucker.
Over our country, spying on our critical defense installations and posing a threat to civilian aviation. That seems like a big deal. If you want to know how big a deal, consider how would we respond if Putin were doing this? If this were a Russian spy balloon? Well, you'd have the world's shortest news story. Russian spy balloon spotted offshore. Entire U.S. Air Force mobilized. Balloon reduced to vapor in seconds. So no, there would not be a lot of debate about what to do about a Russian spy balloon. We'd kill it instantly, as you would any hostile foreign intrusion.
You see
so
now.
The critique, go ahead. We were going to talk.
My point is short past Steve because you guys see how I told you Russia. Tucker Carlson, even though he's good on Ukraine and Russia, his criticism of U.S. foreign policy is we shouldn't be fighting Russia because we should be spending that on China. That is not the anti-imperialist opinion and direction. The anti-imperialist position is that we should not provoke war in Ukraine and Russia because we need to respect country sovereignty and allow regional conflicts to play themselves out. And when it comes to China, we got to support and respect China's sovereignty as well. They're like, no, we should be more focused on our resources. We need to not invest on the war on terror because that failed. We need not to prop up the Ukraine war because Ukraine have no geopolitical significance to the United States. We need to spend all that resources going to war with China. That is not the anti-imperialist position. We need to lead by example. We need to build the global working class through cooperation, trade, exchange of culture, exchange of each other's values. Lead by example, not by cultural imperialism or by cultural domination as well. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, just imagine if the United States was actually spreading good things. Imagine if that was actually happening. Like
we're giving debt the way that China's doing.
Yeah, like imagine like feeding people, like wiping away debt, like you said. It's just unreal. But let's listen a little more to because he turns up the heat. Just a second here.
But things turn out to be a little different when it's a Chinese spy balloon. As far as we know, Vladimir Putin has never sent cash to Joe Biden's crackhead son. He probably should have. That would have been a very wise investment in retrospect. The Chinese government, long thinking as always, did send cash to Joe Biden's crackhead son, and apparently to Joe Biden himself. And that paid off. Watch some robot from the Pentagon tell you that you have no right to know anything about this Chinese spy balloon. You think you're a citizen or something? Here it is.
Position of the balloon classified?
Phil, right now, what we're not going to do is get into a hour-by-hour location of the balloon. Again, we're monitoring it closely. As I mentioned, right now, it's over the center of the continental United States. That's about as specific as I'm going to get.
But I understand it might be inconvenient, but does the public not have a right to know if a balloon
the public
is over
certainly has the ability to look up in the sky and
see where the balloon is. Balloon. Cops kill 3 people per day, man. The U.S. government is spying on us. Like, we know our government is spying on us. And you guys worry about some hypothetical Chinese balloon over Montana?
Do people know they're spying on us? Does the average person know?
Even Tucker would do segments talking about how we spying on us. On how the United States is spying on their own citizens. How we have
people are okay with that. Or they feel like they're powerless against stopping it. Or they feel like I'll give up my right in order because I'm so fearful of all the bad guys that my government is telling me about. I'm so fearful I'm willing to give up. What bucket do you think most Americans, or how would you break it down?
I think most Americans don't give a shit about this. Like, people gotta remember that, like, even Tucker Carlson, who kills it, I think I saw a number of like 4 million. Like, he get 4 million prime time. I may be super wrong, but that's like, who cares? like who cares about the number, right? But you hear what I'm saying. Like, he get a few million views, but how much of that is actually the population? CNN ratings have tanked. So these people, their consent is manufactured, and they're like, oh my god, Chinese balloons. I was curious. I was looking on right-wing Twitter. I was looking at some right-wing commentators, and I saw some clips that was like, oh my god, Biden's so weak. If I was there, I'd get my shotgun and I would shoot the balloon out of the sky. Like, goddamn, liberals so weak on China. I'm like, dude, you got these people who are desperate to trying to get the American people who literally struggling to keep the lights on. to get their kids through the day, who worry about working their jobs. And these people who live these privileged existence, these millionaires like Tucker Carlson, the people who don't have to worry about goddamn thing, they're not worried about the government spying on them. They're not worried about the police ever killing them because they're the people they serve. So they here to manufacture your panic over the other. That is what the capitalists benefit from. You worry about China, worry about Russia, worry about these people instead of the heist that we are doing right in front of your face. And that was Tucker is being complicit with. Which is why, even though and people give him a lot of credit for his good takes, which, okay, fair enough, you want to give him credit, I wouldn't do that. Because he's playing a very specific role, and those good takes have a purpose. He's good on Ukraine because he wanted us to spend that money on Ukraine on investing the economic war against China. That is not the anti-imperialist position. But anyway, sorry, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so, I'll save my next comment for this.
The public has the right to look at the sky. Go stare at the sun. That's what the guy just said. What you didn't hear was a lecture about how the Chinese military is a threat to our democracy and our American way of life. It's not like the Chinese invaded Ukraine. No, just our country. So no big deal. Stop asking questions.
That's funny.
Joe Biden, of course.
Comparing the Russian army invading Ukraine with the balloon invading us is crazy. But that is classic. That is classic propaganda, and he slips it in there so nonchalantly. It was like, yeah, it's like one sentence. You get what I'm saying? It's like it's not any space to be like, this is a question. This is a statement telling you what's happening. So let's continue here. Wait, gotta push it.
Of course, took that very same position today. Watch.
Remember what the economy was like when I got here? Jobs were hemorrhaging. Inflation was rising. We weren't manufacturing a damn thing here. We were in real economic difficulty. That's why I don't. Thank you.
Mr. President, when and how will you remain with the balloon? When and how will you remain with the balloon, Mr. President?
Notice the calm smiles. Walk this way, Mr. President. They knew they weren't going to answer questions on that. And it raises a much bigger question, which is why? What's going on here? What else do they know but refuse to tell us? Well, today, Pentagon sources conceded that the Biden administration has actually been tracking this Chinese spy balloon for months since it left China. That means they watched it float over the Pacific, they watched it pass over the Aleutian Islands and into American airspace. And at any time, they could have shot it down over the water, by the way, risking no life on the ground. But they didn't do that. Why didn't they do that? No one will say. Instead,
why did they do that? No one will say, Nick.
So you will see, because I'm glad you showed this. I'm going to interject this MSNBC clip because I want to analyze the other side. Tucker Carlson, who sounds like Joyanne Reed now. Tucker Carlson, who sounds like Simone Sanders. So Tucker Carlson is pretending because he knows his audience is very tribal. They probably don't watch MSNBC and CNN. So they pretending that these people are weak on China. I'm going to show you a MSNBC segment. I got a CNN segment on tap as well that show you that he's bullshitting. I'm going to show you the segment where they literally fear-mongering over China as well. And they explain, Tucker said they don't got no explanation for this. So what they said the reason why they didn't want to shoot the balloon down because for one, they didn't want any environmental damage, anyone harmed, but also they want to do recon on the balloon. They want to gather intel on it, and also they benefit PR-wise in terms of international relationship by dragging this out by saying, "Oh my God, China, how dare you!" And then Blinken pulls out of the meeting. Blinken and Xi had a meeting scheduled for the first time. A Secretary of State was about to meet with Xi Jinping since 2018. So they use this as an excuse to pull out of that meeting and escalate tensions with China. So Biden and the Democrats are like, you moronic Republicans, we are playing 4D chess on escalating tensions against China. You guys are literally want to run into it with like slack-jaw baboons. Meanwhile, they're playing 4D chess on escalating tensions. So
do they is this like disrespect for them to pull out? Is that how they're looking at an escalation, or this is part of the theater to sell to the American population that this is something big? Like, do you think that's it, or what do you stand on?
Also, the right wing, they want to say that Biden is in the tank with Xi Jinping in China because of Hunter Biden and Bennett's connections that he got with China. So they trying to use they said so they using any they will use any story. They say, oh, so the Chinese spy balloon. The reason why Biden shoot down immediately is because he's in the tank with China and he helping China gather the intel. And I know because this is the op I did. I'm not Tucker Carlson in particular, but this is what a lot of them are saying. So I want to interject this other segment because I want to show you guys the other side, and it's also kind of show you guys how ridiculous Tucker is kind of being. We're pretending that Democrats are weak on China. So I have two, but I might play one and may say the other one for later, depending on time. We see because it's only 6 minutes long, so not a long segment. Let's watch it, and I want to break down. I want to fix the audio, and then I'm gonna break down exactly what they are doing. They're doing anti-China rhetoric and pro-war China fever, escalating pro-war China fever, but from the liberal angle. So listen to this garbage.
The United States has shot down the Chinese balloon that had been hovering over the country. President Biden confirmed the military action about an hour ago.
The internet.
Let's bring in.
I tried to say it earlier, but the website, I can't pull up the website.
Is an NBC News Korean affairs analyst and a former director
I'm using my phone right
at the
now.
National
So
Security
I thought
Council.
maybe I was waiting for
Thank you so much.
Okay, CJ. I don't meet you, CJ, real quick.
For being with us, Victor. This is just really all happening at a very, I would argue, inopportune time for U.S.-Chinese relations. What is your read of this? And particularly if you could respond to this thread of the United States today, officials, from military officials to U.S. government officials, talking about the violation of U.S. sovereignty by the Chinese government with this balloon.
Yeah, so a couple of things. The first is that, yes, this is a direct violation of U.S. airspace, U.S. sovereignty.
I'm going to show you guys another segment from CNN, and what the liberal professional managerial class is doing is particularly disgusting. They keep bringing on people of Asian descent on their segments to spread anti-Chinese propaganda. Like this guy here. They bring this guy on, and you're going to see throughout the segment, to tell you why China is the worst thing ever. And CNN does another segment where they bring another East Asian on who explains how China is the worst thing ever. They keep doing, and they have Simone Sanders, a black woman, here to tell black people why we shouldn't be afraid of our white supremacist government, our police state, our capitalist state. We should be afraid of the Chinese.
Sovereignty. While China has been doing a number of things in the East Asian region with regard to the territorial space or disputed territorial airspace and sea of other countries, this is the most direct violation of the United States. And the U.S. action to take down this balloon is sort of the first real kinetic act against a Chinese asset, in this rising U.S.-China competition. So there's a lot of symbolism associated with this, given the competition between the United States and China.
A lot of symbolism. I'm wondering your thoughts about the cancellation of Secretary Blinken's trip to meet with President Xi Jinping in China. Do you think that we will see Secretary Blinken make an overture again sometime soon, or will other U.S. officials, notably maybe the National Security Advisor to the president, be making a trip instead to send a message?
Well, I think Secretary Blinken will go now that they've shot this thing down, and will collect intelligence on it, and will explain everything that China was trying to do with it. I mean, I think he'll go. I mean, it's an important trip because the U.S.-China relationship is escalating. It's becoming extremely tense. Biden and the Chinese leader met in Indonesia in November to try to put guardrails on the relationship. And Blinken's trip was the first since Mike Pompeo went in 2018 to try to, implement this idea of putting guardrails on the relationship. So China needed this visit actually quite badly. And this balloon situation just was extremely embarrassing for them. Blinken couldn't go, but now he can go, and I think he will, give the démarche on this intelligence balloon. But then
they keep doing this talking point where they are saying this balloon is embarrassing for China. No, the only thing that is embarrassing in this situation is your guys' unhinged reaction to it. Everyone in the world is laughing at you guys. And I'm talking about 80% of the world population. There is 20% of the European colonizing force that support NATO. I'm talking about Germany, France, the United States. You have these Western European countries supportive of this. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is looking at the West as the clowns that they are. So they keep pretending it's embarrassing for China. It's not embarrassing for China at all. And the reason why China wants this meeting, and they say, well, this is a big blow because China wants this meeting. China wants this meeting. Why do you think they wanted the meeting, CJ? They want the meeting because they're trying to get the United States to chill the fuck out.
And I think they know that. I think they know that because they could have brought up this balloon a week ago, days ago, 2 weeks ago. They could have brought this up since they've been tracking it, Nick. They could have brought this up and said, hey, blah, blah, blah. They wait exactly at the meeting. This is all about the high. I bet they have a Hollywood director that's kind of involved in it. This is all about building climax. And it's like, oh, on my way. Oh, no, I'm not. There's a Chinese spy balloon. Like, if this is all about building climax, and this is the beginning of the campaign, I'm telling you, of different things. This is going to be the first thing. And then it'll be like, oh, China is doing this. They're trying to attack our computer systems. They're trying to do this. There's going to be another slip up or something that's going to happen.
They're just lying. They're lying. And once again, the right wing just saying with no evidence whatsoever. Chinese EMP attack. Like, where's this coming from? Doug Carlson, like they're spying on military infrastructure. Like, they're looking at people's lawns in Montana. So you guys know that China has satellites, right? You guys realize that Google Earth is an app that you can use. You can literally go on Google Earth, scroll over Montana, and see the same fucking thing that the balloon did. It's so absurd, and it's ridiculous that these people are pretending this is an embarrassment on China. And so, back to my point, I will continue the video because it's not a long segment. I won't continue. I'll continue the video.
Actually, So I even saw John Brennan. You know, what is he? Ex-CIA director and some other, other positions he's been in. Even he came on, Nick. They had Leon Panetta come on CNN. They're bringing out the heavyweights for this, Nick. Heavyweights for a balloon.
It's a full court press. Like, I may play the CNN clip. I'm playing based on time. Because I can always do it for a segment later, but because there's so much to analyze on this. I'm during my time off, I've been watching these Western talking heads lose their goddamn mind. Let's continue the video because I still got a lot more to add, but I don't want this segment to be too long, so I'll just play it.
And focus on the issues that matter to the United States, like defense of Taiwan, human rights, export controls on semiconductors and other commanding heights technology.
This guy is some reporter. Based on the what they said about, I saw the Jumbotron. Yeah, this is 255. So this is Victor Cha, Korean Affairs Analysis. And CJ, I mentioned earlier, you see how disgusting it is they bring this guy on? And I don't want to make any assumptions. That's why I'm being very vague here. Just say this guy of East Asian descent, and they brought in same for CNN. Another CNN segment I'm gonna show you guys later. I can even show you the screenshot. They bring another person from East Asian descent to tell you guys about how China is bad, about how we need to defend Taiwan. You see how?
Oh my God, they do this all the freaking time.
Yeah, look at this.
And it's to mask racism. They do. It's so clear. It's to mask to say we're not being racist. Look, there's a person right here of East Asian descent. He's saying it too. They do this with black people when it's some sort of police brutality. There's a black person spokesman. They do this all the time. It's so that they can say, "See, we're not racist," or "This is not racist." Whatever the thing is. Go ahead.
And that's as disgusting as anything conservatives do. And I'm not playing this video yet, but you see, they got this reporter of East Asian descent, and I watched this one already. She's here to tell you how bad China is. CNN, MSNBC, and the Democratic liberal media, they're doing a strategy where we're gonna bring, like, if you want to make it as a reporter, I told you guys, if I was really a grifter, I would do what Terrence Williams and Candace Owens is doing, being a black Trump supporter. Like, that's Terrence where the fucking money.
That's a new one for me. I don't know. Who's
Like, yeah, like that's where the money is at, son. Right? There's no money being a black Marxist, right? If you're of East Asian descent, if you want to make it in politics, if you want to make it up the corporate ladder, just be anti-China, be extremely anti-DPRK, be pro-Taiwan separatist, and CNN and MSNBC will be jumping at joy to invite you on. If you are someone like Carla Jha, who we had on, who is of East Asian descent, who debunks Western propaganda against the Chinese Communist Party, you will never see them on these segments, right? So anyway, I want to go back to this because I don't want this segment to go too much longer. I think I was at 355, right? 255, I think. Yeah, I'll go back 255. And then we only have 3 minutes left, so I'll let it play, and then we can analyze it. And I'll pass it to you for your part, CJ.
Defense of Taiwan, human rights, export controls on semiconductors and other commanding heights technology against the Chinese.
You noted that this balloon situation was an embarrassment. I think lots of folks use that term this week.
Lots of people.
Also, what happened this week, their global infrastructure efforts. There's a Wall Street Journal story talking about the headline is China's global mega projects are falling apart. This seems like just a terrible PR week for the Chinese government, but also there are real international implications for their relationships. What are your thoughts there?
What are you talking about?
It's a really good question, and it's a good point. I mean, we often see China's like standing 100 feet tall, but in the last few months, major setbacks for President Xi Jinping. First, the COVID lockdown completely failed after people protested, and they just rapidly reversed the policy and now have huge.
So people protested against the government, and they respond in a democratic way. Meanwhile, we got protests in the United States. We have protests in Cop City where they are labeling Americans as domestic terrorists. Protesters are being killed. And if you was an honest reporter, you would do a segment like, oh my God, isn't this how the United States, signs that the United States is falling apart? I'm showing this part because this is the propaganda technique where they do, where they're like, oh my God, our enemy is unbelievably weak, but also unbelievably strong. We must take them on at the same time. Oh my God, things are falling apart in China. As their economy continues to do better than us, their quality of life is rising above our quality of life. Their education is better, their infrastructure is better, but China is falling apart while we're doing great. This is what the liberal propaganda is. Let's continue, not too much longer.
Cases of COVID inside the country without the right vaccine infrastructure. They're having an economic slowdown. The mega projects are referring to these things called the Belt and Road Initiative, where these massive capital financial projects, infrastructure projects that are offered to do in the global south that are all sort of falling apart now. And then on top of that,
they're trying to tell people that the Belt and Road Initiative and it's falling apart. It's stronger than ever. Everything this guy is saying is the exact opposite.
Why?
It's really unbelievable. I'll let it keep playing, but it's literally unbelievable.
Have this balloon situation happen just when arguably the two most important countries in the world were going to meet. Is again hugely embarrassing for the Chinese. So the Chinese don't stand 100 feet tall, and not nearly that tall, and they're clearly having problems.
Mr. Chow, I think that there are some people watching right now who would say, okay, they shot the balloon down, got it, competition, not conflict, all right. But why should everyday Americans who don't do foreign policy right, who aren't keyed in on this issue on a regular basis,
now this is the part I really wanted to show for you guys, CJ. So Simone Sanders asked actually a decent question here to this person. Why should the American people care about a fucking balloon from China? Why? What does this have to do with everyone's everyday life? And listen to this guy's complete non-answer. So I'll go back to the question because I want you guys to hear this part.
Everyday Americans who don't do foreign policy right, who aren't keyed in on this issue on a regular basis, why should they care about this particular, the relations between China and the United States?
Well, I mean, in terms of the balloon, it shows the sort of massive intelligence gathering campaign that China executes against the United States. And this is just one small part of it. This is a balloon, but they have surveillance satellites that are over the United States 24/7 trying to collect information. I mean, that's nature of competition.
So they have if you just admit they have satellites, this is nothing new. Like CJ, their common sense will kick in every once in a while when they like snap out propaganda. I'm like, yeah, I know they got satellites too. But the question is, why should the American people care when our government is spying on us? When they would admit that our government is doing the same to theirs.
Between two great powers in the international system. So I guess we expect to see some of that. But the other aspect is that China engages in massive disinformation around the world. You know, they will tell the rest of the world that this was a defenseless weather balloon that the United States made a big deal out of, even though
That's
Because it
exactly
is.
what they did.
China wages massive disinformation campaigns by telling people that we're freaking out over a balloon as we freak out over a balloon. So once again, the question is, why should we care about this? His answer thus far is because China lies about our lies. Why should you care about that? Let's continue because we only got a little bit left, and I'll pass to you, TJ.
Defenseless weather balloon that the United States made a big deal out of, even though it's a spy balloon, and they're doing the same thing in Ukraine, saying that the war is all the fault of the United States and NATO. So, I mean, if anything, it should awake Americans.
So China is telling the truth. They're like, oh my God, China's not joining our unhinged anti-Russia campaign in Ukraine because they know that we literally started the war, that we propped up the Nazi regime in 2014 when we supported the Maidan coup. He's like,
80% of the world population is against this. 80% of the world population, isn't that what you always quote it?
So he's saying China's doing this this misinformation campaign. They keep going to Africa and telling the United States of the crimes that they did against them. They keep exposing our crimes to people. That's what his answer is. Of course, China, like the rest of the world, is like, hey guys, have you guys seen how unhinged the United States has been the last few decades? Right? Let's continue. Only 30 more seconds. Only 30 more seconds left.
To the fact that there is this massive effort by the Chinese against the U.S.
Victor Cha, thank you so
question.
much. We love the experts who can break it down for us. Appreciate your time.
Experts. So they're stepping essentially over.
They're always very vague, and when they talking about China as a threat, it's just a threat. China's massive. They use these adjectives, and it seems very overblown for what's happening. Massive threat. Remember, Tucker Carlson called it a military device or military machinery or something.
You see how they brought this guy of East Asian descent on to be the quote unquote expert on China, but he couldn't even answer the question. You would think a very basic one, right? Like, why should the American people care about China spy balloons? And his response was, man, China keep talking shit about us, man. That's what China you should care because China talk shit about us. I got a show where I talk shit about the United States all the time. Why we at barbershop conversations talk shit about the United States all the time? Why should we care about this? Once again, if you had the capitalist mindset, it's about shutting down any competing models. But go ahead, CJ. I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is all one segment, most likely, Aaron, if you're watching. But so let's kind of wrap it up with an article. So we kind of did the visual part. This kind of sums up what we're talking about here. U.S. media whips up anti-China or Chinese hysteria over balloon flight. Over the past 4 days, the American population has been subject to a barrage of war propaganda over the claim that China sent a huge balloon visible to the naked eye to spy on U.S. nuclear bases. The media machine is operating at full throttle since the balloon's existence was publicly announced last week. Breathless coverage has been provided, minute by minute updates on the progress of the floating white balloon as it slowly traversed across the continental United States. The story led every newspaper for days, was the first item on evening news broadcast, and dominated 24-hour cable network. News networks. And I'll pause there. And that's the point. Like, everybody, Nick, participated in this.
Yeah.
It seems like everybody got the bat signal. Hey, it's time. we're going after China. It's time. Story. Break. Whatever they do to cause their planet to execute. Go ahead, Nick.
Dictators wish they had this kind of media compliance. Where we showed you MSNBC, their version of Russian fear mongering. You guys saw with the number one rated cable news host, the way he China fear mongers. Imagine the power that comes from this central plane model, the capitalist mode of production, where you have the ruling class and the government that sends a memo to every single person in media, say, you get on board on this. And you already know, it's not even like they got to twist their arm. They're like, if you don't do this, your career is over. What are you going to do? You're going to go on air and not and tell the truth about this? Anyone who went on air and told the truth about the China balloon incident, their career is over. And that's how we control the media, which is way more powerful than any other state media apparatus. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, you can go and check this article out. It's U.S. media whips up anti-China or Chinese hysteria over a balloon fight. Is by Andre Damon, and it's not even a day old. It's on the World Socialist website. I won't read all of it, but that's a good segment. I think we covered all of it, all of the sort of hysteria, both like propaganda, a bunch of propaganda.